This video isn't scripted. And I was like, you know what sounds like fun? Coming up with a Pokemon team to represent all of the 9 different levels in Banjo-Kazooie. So, starting with Mumbo's Mountain, the first thing I thought of was Ticker's Tower. The termites are such like an iconic element of Mumbo's Mountain, so I wanted to represent them first. And I went with Durant, because I think it's the only real ant Pokemon anyway, but also, I don't know, they're mean, and it just felt right. Ticker's Tower is represented with Durant, that gave me a really strong start. I was really confident by being able to so quickly think of a Pokemon to represent Ticker's Tower, and that falsely gave me the idea that this would be a quick and easy adventure of mine to do. Next, I've got Passimian, representing Chimpy, and I went with Shiny Passimian because it turns the melons that it's got orange, which I think represented Chimpy and his desire to have an orange, really well. Next, we've got Rillaboom representing Conga. There are a couple of different gorilla Pokemon to pick from. Rillaboom felt the best just because kind of the physique fit Conga's silhouette the best. I also like that, again, it's got the orange-like mouth, which kind of fit with Conga's orange theme. So next, representing the Juju Totem Pole guys, I've got Darmanitan, specifically in Zen mode. And I know that this only happens when it's at, like, 50 HP. This isn't, like, a permanent feature that you can have Darmanitan always at. But it just seemed to fit so well, you know? I figured since there's not a whole lot going on at Mumbo's Mountain, it was the perfect opportunity to actually represent Mumbo himself. I mean, hell, it's his mountain. And I went with Alolan Marowak. And because at first I was thinking about going with, like, Duskull or Dusclops, because they've got skulls, and Mumbo's whole thing is his skull motif. I had completely forgotten about the Cubone line, and Marowak, I think, is perfect for Mumbo. Especially Alolan Marowak, because, it's just a lot more kind of mystical feeling, and I felt the typing was better as well, because, you know, Mumbo does magic, and normal Marowak is just ground, not really a magical kind of type, you know? And then finally, I've got Stonejourner, which is kind of just representing that Stonehenge area over there. Again, there's not a lot at Mumbo's Mountain. It's a tiny level. But Stonejourner just kind of, he fit that so well. He fits right on in, so yeah. And this is the team. This is the fun part to me, is getting to see all the Pokemon together. This is a pretty well-balanced team, actually. Of all the teams I came up with, this is probably one of the most viable for combat. Starting off with Hippowdon, representing Blubberguts. Yeah, the hippo and captain whose gold you have to find for him. So female Hippowdon are like a dark gray, which definitely fits Captain Blubber's color palette better, but one, he is not female, and two, I felt that the tan brown of male Hippowdon could kind of represent his gold, you know, because that's a big element for him. Next, we've got a shiny Crustle representing no one else except Snippet, the big crab and one of the few real bosses that you have to fight in the game. I went with shiny Crustle because Snippet is green and it turns green, and it just felt right that way. There are a good number of crab Pokemon, but I felt Crustle fit the silhouette best, with, like, being very shell-heavy, literally. Next, we've got Palossand, representing the Sandcastle. Palossand is perfect because it is a sandcastle, and, you know, it's got the little shovel on top, so that can kind of be like Leaky up there, too. Next, we've got Sharpedo, of course representing Snacker. Snacker is one of the scariest things to any child who decides to play video games. It's right up there with the piano in Mario 64. I had to represent Snacker. He's so important. He's so fun. He makes getting into the water so scary. The first, like, water-based threat, but one that you can avoid, so it's okay. Pro tip, get the blue Jinjo first, because nothing's less fun than having to go back into the water to get the Jiggy if you get the blue Jinjo last, because Snacker will still be there. Then we got Crawdaunt, representing the evil big bad snippet crab boy inside the sandcastle. I was running out of things for Treasure Trove Cove because there are no treasure chest Pokemon. But he is one of the few, he's labeled a boss. He's technically considered a boss despite just being a slightly harder enemy with a cool palette. So he felt good enough to represent. And I went with Crawdaunt because while there are no black crabs, Crawdaunt is at least red and a dark type as well, which I felt worked well in representing our very Shadow the Hedgehog colored crab friend here. And finally, since I couldn't find a treasure chest Pokemon, but I needed to represent the millions of treasure chests somehow, I went with Guzzlord. Of the Pokemon that are similar to a treasure chest, I felt Guzzlord did the best. The important part was getting that, hinge jaw thing. And Guzzlord's large mouth felt like it fits right up there with Lockup. So, yeah, there's a Treasure Trove Cove team. It's a lot of water and ground. It's one of the less great teams, but I like the amount of color variations here. That's fun. Next up is Clanker's Cavern, and this one was also one of the hardest, because you know what's in Clanker's Cavern? Clanker. And that's kind of it. So, representing Clanker, I've got Kyogre, because Clanker is weirdly like a mix between a whale and a shark, and Kyogre kind of fits that too. It's kind of it's a whale, but it's got a lot of orca elements in its design, and it fit that whale-shark combo better than any other sort of shark-type Pokemon, I felt. Next, we've got a shiny Kingler, representing the mutant snippets that you can find in Clanker's Cavern. Of course, again, I went with shiny to make it green, because the shiny is green, and the snippets are very green, so that felt like an important thing to go with. I also went with Kingler because it's got its one really large claw, and that's the snippet's whole deal. Next we got Remoraid, representing Gloop at the bottom of Clanker's Cavern, down near the key that you need to turn to raise him. I went with Remoraid just because it fits the basic silhouette and pattern of just a boring normal fish. I had thought about going with Finneon, but I didn't like the light up element that Finneon has, because Gloop doesn't do that. So yeah, that's why we went with Remoraid instead. Next we got Gastrodon, representing they've got a real name, and I'm embarrassed that I don't know it, but those chompy slug guys that hang out in the walls that are introduced in Clanker's Cavern. And Gastrodon, I felt, fit that slug-like physique the best. And of course we went with I think it's West, the green variant of Gastrodon to fit their green coloring better. Next we've got Garbodor. So Garbodor is moreover just representing the overall theme of Clanker's Cavern. Clanker is a trash compactor, so that's why it's kind of gross there. I felt having Garbodor on the team worked well to sort of just pull in that vibe of, this is a trash compactor, this is a dump, this is garbage, and that's what Garbodor is. And finally, we've got Celesteal, the biggest stretch on the team. Celesteal is representing all of the pipes in Clanker's Cavern. There are plenty of collectibles in the pipes. You have to swim through a lot of them. Some of them are dead ends, so you have to swim back. It's a big part of it. If you're not in Clanker, you're probably in a pipe. So Celesteal is sort of representing that. I'm not sure how well it does at representing that. Clanker's Cavern. It was hard. And it all turned out to be very green and blue, which, hey, that kind of fits the palette of Clanker's Cavern pretty well. It's a lot of water-type Pokemon, which is to be expected, but but I'm proud with what I was able to do.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
Up next is Bubble Gloop Swamp, my favorite level in the game. So first we've got Feraligatr representing just like that large gator building that Mr. Vile lives in. Gators are important. It's so important. So Feraligatr being on the team just felt right. It had to be there. Because there's the big gator Mr. Vile lives in, and also you turn into an alligator. I thought about going with the shiny version of Feraligatr, but I felt that the blue and red fits well enough, and the shiny version isn't green enough to truly justify going with the shiny option. Next we got Chewtle, representing Tank Tup's children and his turtle choir. I went with Chewtle specifically because it already looks like it's singing in its artwork, you know? Like, it looks like Banjo just did a ground pound on it, and it's doing this little meep that they do. I'm so happy with Chewtle. Next we've got Carracosta. I probably said that wrong, don't worry about it, but it's representing Tank Tup in his entirety. I wanted to go with a sea turtle for Tank Tup because he is a sea turtle. He doesn't have real feet, he's got flippers. And Carracosta is, I think, the best option. Unfortunately, there wasn't a more brown variant for him. The shiny is just a different shade of blue. So boring. So that's a bit of a bummer. But yeah, Carracosta representing my boy Tank Tup. And then we got Palpitoad. Palpitoad is representing the Flibbits, and more specifically, the yellow ones that you have to fight in order to get a Jiggy. Now, unfortunately, there aren't actually any yellow frogs. Most of them are blue, which is like... why? Palpitoad felt just springy enough, and was also, at least had yellow on it, so got Palpitoad on the team. Of course, Crocodile, representing my homeboy Mr. Vile. I actually had a crocodile named Mr. Vile. That was the easiest thing to come up with for this list. There's no better option. It's a red crocodile! What are you gonna do? It's perfect. Perfect. I love it. And finally, we've got Togekiss. I know. Weird. It's representing the giant egg that you have to break open to get a Jiggy. Now, I know that perhaps picking a piranha Pokemon to fill out this team would have fit better with the overall aesthetic of Bubble Gloop Swamp, but I really like that egg Jiggy. I think it's just really unique, and I wanted to represent it, and I felt like nothing did that better than the giant egg Pokemon itself, Togekiss. That's the Bubble Gloop Swamp team. Very water. A lot of water. But I'm not surprised by that.
Dancing on the blade, you set my heart on fire.
Up next is Freezeezy Peak. This was another pretty easy one for me. I had a lot of fun with Freezeezy Peak. So first, we gotta represent Boggy, and we're doing that with Beartic. What else would I pick? It's a polar bear Pokemon. It's perfect. Next, I wanted to get the Twinklies and the Twinkly Munchers, but like, nothing felt great for representing Christmas lights and then like just green goblin guys. So I found the best thing I could, which is Xurkitree, which is kind of representing the whole Christmas tree and the Twinklies in its entirety. Xurkitree, with its electricity theme and everything, felt like it just fit the best. I like Xurkitree, and I think I really like it representing the Twinklies collection of Jiggies that you can get. Next we got Walrein representing Wazza. Of course, Wazza is such an interesting character in the Banjo world, and Walrein fits it so perfectly, especially because the shiny version is purple like Wazza. It's like they were made for each other. I'm so too excited about this. Next we got Bergmite representing like the ice in the water that makes it too cold for you to stay in the water. I went with Bergmite over Avalugg because it's like the perfect silhouette to represent the little ice cube that talks to you. Next, representing the snowman and also the Sir Slushes around the world, we've got Abomasnow. So I thought about going with the Galar form of Darmanitan because it's also a snowman now. But It's something about Abomasnow just felt more right to me, perhaps. It's just because Darmanitan's new form, I think it's kind of goofy looking. And finally, we've got all these Ice Cube guys, and they're an ass. I hate them, but specifically you can find them on top of the snowman, where you can get a Jiggy. So they felt important enough to represent. And what else but Regice? It seems like such a too important and too strong Pokemon to represent these shitty ice cubes, but I mean, it's the perfect Pokemon to do that. It's just an ice cube. It's perfect. and that's the Freezeezy line. I'm not surprised that there are this many ice type Pokemon. I am surprised that Xurkitree happened though, because when I was vaguely thinking about this, I was like, oh yeah, Beartic, that can be boggy. Cool, I can do this. But I just figured I'd handle the Twinklies later. So Xurkitree, I think, is what makes this team so interesting.
It's time to duel!
So first, this blew my mind. There are, like, no camel Pokemon. It's just Numel and Camerupt, and, like, those are so not great for representing Gobi. I'm blown away that we don't have more camel Pokemon. So I went with Numel, because between Numel and Camerupt, Numel felt sadder. Camerupt was too aggressive. I just felt like Numel represented his, like, apathy better, you know? Next we've got Cacturne, representing, just the one cactus that you can get a honeycomb piece in. I don't know why that felt so important to make sure I represented, but hey, I mean, Cacturne is the perfect choice, so why wouldn't I if I couldn't? It's a desert level. Let the cactus Pokemon play, you know? Next we got Cofagrigus. Cofagrigus is kind of doing a lot here. It's primarily representing King Sandybutt, who you have to go through his maze to get his Jiggy, which is actually in a coffin when you get to the end of the maze. But also, like, Cofagrigus' whole vibe kind of just works with the whole of the Gobi's Valley aesthetic. Gobi's Valley is undead and Egypt, and nothing fits that better than Cofagrigus, so I would be stupid to not have Cofagrigus on this list. Next we got Dusclops, which is kind of doing double duty of representing the normal mummy enemies, but more importantly, Grabba, the hand that you have to speedy shoes your way through to get his Jiggy. Dusclops felt like the perfect option because not only is it wrapped like a mummy, but his hands are so prominent. Like, he's just mummy wrappings and hands. It felt like the best option, honestly. Next we've got Electros, which might feel like a bit of a cop-out. What I'm doing with Electros is representing the sand eels. Now, part of me thinks perhaps just going with, like, Ekans to represent Ruby's snake that he charms for you to get a Jiggy for would have been better, but I like the sand eels. I like the hazards. I like those, and I wanted to represent that. And Electros and its line is like, they're the only eel Pokemon. So yeah, might as well go with Electros and make it badass, right? And finally, we got a shiny Luxray representing Jynxie, the Sphinx. So, the Shinx line is kind of based around the Sphinx a little bit. I'm sure there could definitely be a more Sphinx-like Pokemon in the future, but for now, Luxray and its line does fit it the best, and I went with the shiny version just to keep the yellow palette. This one, like I said, pretty easy. It's a very fun team. It's got a decent amount of overlap in its typing. This is a lot of dark and ghost types. But it's a really aesthetically pleasing team altogether, and I think it's fun. I think I had a lot of fun with Gobi's Valley.
Spooky, scary skeleton.
Next we got Mad Monster Mansion, my other favorite level of Banjo-Kazooie. So, the first thing I always think about if I think about Mad Monster Mansion is Moat Sand. I love the Moat Sand Jiggy, I think it's tons of fun. And what else could you pick to represent Moat Sand than Haunter? It's Ghost with hands. Like, it's like it was made for this. Haunter being Moat Sand, it's so good. It's so good. And in that sort of same vein, I've got Stakataka representing the whole sort of church area that Moatsand hangs out in. If you climb to the top, I believe you can find a Jiggy up there, and it's fun to climb up anyway. There's a lot of building in Mad Monster Mansion, even not just the church, but just the mansion itself. I mean, fuck, it's what the level's named after. So Stack Attack is representing kind of all of that. Next, we got Pumpkaboo, representing your transformation as a pumpkin. Banjo turns into a pumpkin, and unfortunately, there are no toilet Pokemon that I could use to represent Logo, so we got Pumpkaboo instead. You have to do a lot as a pumpkin, which is fine. I think it's really interesting figuring out how to traverse the level without your list of abilities that you usually have. I can't talk about strategy in Banjo-Kazooie. I'll just do that all day. So next we've got Spiritomb representing Napper. This is one that I recognize is kind of a stretch. There's just no green ghost type Pokemon. I did my best. I went with Spiritomb because, one, it has green on it. Like, the green of its face is very Napper colored, so I liked that. And then also, since it's entombed, like Spiritomb, it's that whole deal, I felt like that represented the Jiggy entombed in Napper well enough. Again, I realize this one's a bit of a stretch. Next we've got a shiny Blossom. I went with shiny just for the coloring. It's representing the flower pots that you get a Jiggy from in the graveyard. So the pot is orange and the flowers are purple. And so that's why I went with the shiny Blossom, because it turns purple. Kind of like the normal Vileplume and Gloom coloring. I like that a lot. I think that's really cute. And finally, we've got Carbink, which is representing Tumblr. I really like Tumblr's Jiggy as well. Again, there are no cup Pokemon for me to use to represent Tumblr. And I think Carbink was the best I could do, because it's the gemstones in it. Its crystals kind of resemble Tumblr's overall color palette, and it's small. This is another stretch, I gotta say. While I am happy with my overall Mad Monster Mansion list, I realize I have to take a couple of leaps to get there. Unfortunately, a lot of Mad Monster Mansion is just like atmosphere. Stack Attacka is honestly doing the whole level. Like, if I had to represent Mad Monster Mansion with a single Pokemon, it would either be Pumpkaboo or Stack Attacka. So, yeah. But overall, the whole team, I think it's fun. There's, of course, a lot of ghost types, which I'm not surprised about, but I think it is a very visually entertaining team. Captain Planet, he's our hero. We've got Rusty Bucket Bay, and I think this one was the hardest one to do, even harder than Treasure Trove Cove was, with its lack of chest Pokemon. But similar to how kind of like the whole of the level for Mad Monster Mansion could be represented with Stack Attacka, I did that here with Dhelmise, especially shiny Dhelmise, because it gets the Rusty Bucket's, like, classic red coloring. Dhelmise is the ship. It's the whole Rusty Bucket. So that made my life harder to then come up with the rest of the team. Next we got Tapu Fini, which is representing Bubbles. Is that his name? The dolphin underneath the anchor. Representing Bubbles the dolphin felt so important, and Tapu Fini I feel like does that the best. There aren't really any real dolphin Pokemon, honestly. And so yeah, she fits it the best, I feel. Next we got a shiny Golem representing Boss Boombox. There are no box Pokemon, so instead I narrowed in on the explosion element of Boss Boombox. He is TNT. And I looked up Pokemon that can learn the move Explosion, and Golem's squat, short stature fit a box shape the best, honestly. And then I went with shiny, because that turns a tan. Boss Boombox is represented with Golem. Don't worry, this isn't the biggest stretch. That's the next one. Shiny Machop. Let me explain. So there are these Seaman Grublins, that's what they're called, Seaman Grublins in the area. They say, "Hi," and I think they're hilarious. And so Machop's kind of doing that. I went with Machop because I googled the Pokemon Sailors, like that's a class you can fight in the games. And they so often have Machops. It's like it's Poliwhirls and Machops with these guys, and I don't get why. But I figured that was enough of a connection, and Shiny Machop is this like sickly green color, which is close to the green. It's close enough to the green of the Seaman Grublins. Shiny Machop is the biggest stretch I have to take. Well, one of. There's another one that I'll be coming back to. The Rusty Bucket list was hard. Next, this one wasn't a stretch. I actually found a good Pokemon to represent this. It's Muck. Muck is representing the polluted water that you can't stay in, that loses your oxygen even if you are above the water's surface. So, Muck is liquid pollution. I felt it was the best option to sort of represent the slime that the Rusty Bucket is bait at. So, I like the Muck idea. Good job, me. Next, we've got another big stretch. It's Shiny Torkoal. So we got Torkoal representing the whistles. I really like the Whistle Jiggy. There are no explicitly whistle Pokemon. Like, I was like, are there any train Pokemon that, like, shoots out a lot of smoke and makes, like, a tea kettle whistling sound? Yeah, it's Torkoal. And again, I went with the shiny version because it's yellow and the whistles are gold. Looking at the full team, it's actually a great team. It's got a lot of diversity. Again, the most shinies. The Rusty Bucket Bait team was the hardest by far. I'm surprisingly happy with my end result. I think this team, once you lay down what they're all doing, like, oh no, it's Boss Boombox, it's the Sea Grublins, it's the Whistles, it makes sense, you know? Like, I think while these are stretches, and certainly not perhaps everyone's first choice, I think they do a better job at representing what they're representing than, like, Spiritomb does on representing Napper. So, I'm perfect.
525,600 minutes.
And last but definitely not least, we got Click Clock Wood, another favorite of mine. And the first thing, always the first thing I think about with Click Clock Wood is Airy. I love Airy. Airy the Eagle is so cute. I love him. And so of course I'm making it Braviary, my big strong eagle boy. I thought about going with the shiny version, but it didn't feel warranted enough to change the red to blue, because that's really all it does. So, yeah, Airy the Eagle, Braviary, that was an easy one. Next we got Naughty, the Beaver, another easy one. We got Bibarel. I think Bibarel is a boring Pokemon. I did have one on my team. I don't remember anything about Bibarel, except that it exists. But I think it's the only beaver, so perfect. It represents Naughty. Excellent. Next we got the flower in itself, like the main element of the level that plays such a big part in the different seasons. The flower that you grow and water with Gobi. With Florges. Florges comes in this perfect blue coloring, where it just perfectly looks like the flower. Yeah, just another perfect one for the flower. Also, can I just say that when you get to winter and the flower's dead, that's heartbreaking. Next, representing the Zubas is Beedrill, of course. I thought about going with like Mega Beedrill, but it seemed a little too hard. The Zubas are kinda stupid. So just normie Beedrill works fine. Fun fact, pro tip, if you want to beat the Zubas really easy, just make sure you have max gold feathers and just stand still and use your gold feathers. They will run into you and kill themselves. Easy peasy, easy jiggy. Next, representing Nabnuts the squirrel, we've got Squavit. I don't really like Squavit, the Pokemon, much, but I mean, come on, it's a perfect match for Nabnuts. It's a hungry squirrel. Like, that's his whole thing. That's what they do. It's what they both do. Each of these Pokemon were so easy. Click Clock Wood was the easiest one to do. So, yeah, Squavit, perfect, easy, love it. And finally, we've got Saucebuck, representing, like, the whole level. Saucebuck can go through the seasons, and its antlers are designed like tree branches. It is literally the, like, Pokemon embodiment of the whole of Click Clock Wood. Saucebuck is perfect. It's like the tree. It is exactly like the whole level put into a single Pokemon. I think this one might be my favorite. It's a good Pokemon lineup. They look so interesting and diverse together. It's just it was so easy, and each one so perfectly represents the thing that they are representing. I'm just so happy. And yeah, that's what I chose to do with my afternoon. Again, I don't even know if this video will ever happen. Patrons would know if it happens. If I do make a video, it will at least be available to patrons. Let me know if you like it. I think a fun thing to do would be to go through the different teams and kind of like think up what trainer would use these. There are one too many levels. There are 9 levels, but you could come up with like an 8 gym leader situation, like what type they're technically representing, and then maybe the champion or the protagonist. That could be up to you. Just a fun little writing exercise, I guess, that I'm giving you. You could draw them if you want. I just like Pokemon. I like Pokemon and Banjo a lot. And yeah, I spent all this time coming up with these teams, and I figured I want to share that with people. So, yeah, I hope you liked it. Again, don't know what I'm calling this video. I'll come up with a creative name someday. Thanks for being here, I suppose.